Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April 4th meeting of the Revenue Subcommittee of the Ways and Means Committee. Let's see if I can pronounce the name of my own committee correctly. This is Clear the Decks Day, so we're going to try to get through as many of these bills on the list as possible, if not all of them. And then we have a couple other bills that there's still stuff hanging out there on, but we will get to those later in the week. We're going to start with Senate Bill 698, Alcoholic Beverages, Maryland Alcohol Manufacturing and Promotion. The Senate did amend this bill slightly. Stan, I'm going to turn to you to explain. It's mostly just technical stuff, right?
Yeah, they just made some minor tweaks. So they changed they clarified the organizations that would be eligible for grants. So it would be C3s and C6s, and then also 501c3 and C6s. And then they also made some minor changes about the membership of the commission. So they required it reflect the diversity of the state, and then also include the governor's office of small minority and women business affairs.
Good. And then did we have an additional amendment on it?
Yeah, the amendment is just technical. It just corrects a cross-reference.
Move the technical amendment.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On the bill as amended, I'll go ahead and move favorable.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 698 is recommended favorably to full committee. Stan, that was the only one you had on the list today, right?
That's the only one I have.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for visiting with us. We appreciate it.
The man.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too. So let's go back to our normal order of things. We're going to start with the two House bills. House Bill 386 is a bill that we discussed a little bit early in session, but has been in extensive conversations with the Senate sponsor, the House sponsor, various local governments, et cetera, et cetera. The Senate sent a version out that we'll consider later today in this meeting, but we'll go ahead and deal with the House version first. So I'm going to turn to George to describe the amendments, which, as George drafted them, encompass both what happened in the Senate as well as some additional changes that we'd be making here in the House. So George, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'll recall, the purpose of the bill would be to expand the use of SMWOBA to include grants and business to both businesses and nonprofits in areas of the state where a local declaration of emergency was declared by the principal executive officer. These amendments first would narrow the scope of that expansion to only Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis. That expansion would only be for a period of 2 years. In addition, if you'll recall with the Senate bill, it also set up a work group to study and report recommendations regarding the efficacy and sustainability of existing emergency fund resources and the potential establishment of a state disaster relief fund. The amendments would also include establishing that work group.
So bottom line, just to remind folks of the genesis for this, under state law right now, SMWOBA can convert loans to grants in cases where there's a state disaster emergency declaration under existing law. When the tornado hit Annapolis last fall, and the state did not declare a disaster. They didn't make a disaster declaration. There was, however, a county disaster declaration, but that wasn't enough of a trigger to qualify under state law. So essentially what we'd be doing here is creating a work group to look at the issue of how to make sure we're supporting small businesses in the case of a disaster. And in the meantime, allowing Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, should another disaster hit that qualifies for a local disaster declaration, but not a state disaster declaration, to convert these existing loans to small minority and women-owned businesses to grants for the next 2 years until that work group reports. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me, and thank you for that overview. In looking through the amendment, question for George, I think there's a provision about limiting it to the VLT proceeds for Anne Arundel County. Can you just give us a summary of what that provision does?
Sure. So what that is intended to do is simply to say that the assistance provided under the bill for purposes of Anne Arundel and Annapolis with respect to the local declaration cannot exceed the amount of money that's distributed to SMOWOBA from VLT terminals that are at the Anne Arundel County VLT facility.
Otherwise, it might be possible, depending on the scale and scope of disasters, that money that would otherwise be going to SMOWOBA fund managers in other jurisdictions might be eaten into by Anne Arundel. So, any other questions on these amendments? All right, I move the amendments.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On the bill as amended, is there a motion?
Second. Move favorable.
Second.
I thought you moved favorable, Lukey. Come on.
I'm switching it up just to mess with you. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, HB 386 is recommended favorably. HB 405. So as members of the subcommittee know, I've made it my personal mission to try to convince people that they should not be trying to solve every policy problem through the tax code. And we had a bill introduced that had both a House and Senate version. The House version had not moved yet, but we're going to consider it right now. The Senate version was moved by the Senate and is in our committee, and we'll move it probably later this week. But it would create a tax credit for mechanical insulation, which is the installation of certain types of devices that are used for energy efficiency purposes. And after conferring with the chairman of the Economic Matters Committee, he's comfortable with us, instead of doing a tax credit, simply creating a grant program through MEA. There's no mandated appropriation under these amendments that would allow MEA to make grants under the same scenarios as the tax credit. It's just, it would be a grant program and subject to the appropriations process instead of a tax credit. So that's my recommendation to the subcommittee. Delegate Buck.
And you said there's no particular mandated appropriation in the year. It's just an open envelope for a future legislature or governor to fill.
That's correct.
Sounds good. Sounds reasonable.
Delegate Barnes.
Is there a dollar amount attached to this right now? Or how much are these grants? Or is one able to apply for a grant?
Per grant.
George, what's the grant cap? Is it 25,000?
Currently, the grants are for 30% of project, or the lesser of 30% of project costs, with a maximum cap of $20,000 per project.
And do we have an idea? So we haven't done this before. How many companies are out there that may apply for such a grant?
I do not know offhand.
I don't know that anyone knows the answer to that, because part of the goal is to incent more companies to install mechanical insulation. So, you know, it's a little hard to figure out.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing I would add is that the amendments clarified the definition of qualified expenses to make clear that these would not include capital investments for the installation of mechanical insulation that are otherwise required by statute, regulation, or code.
Which was a change requested by the Maryland Energy Administration.
Perfect, thank you.
I got a question.
Let me come to you in a second, Delegate Long. Delegate Feldmark has her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess this may be a question for George, but other than that clarification that you can't get the grant for improvements that are required by code, are the other qualifications criteria all the same? We're just changing from the sort of mechanism from tax credit to grant?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
as far as funding, as Delegate Lukey noted, there isn't a mandatory appropriation. Instead, the amendments create a mechanical installation grant fund, and that fund will be used for both the costs associated with providing grants as well as the administration of the program by MEA.
Thank you.
I should mention also the amendments include a sunset so that the Economic Matters Committee would have the ability down the road to determine if they wanted to continue the program. Any other questions on the amendments or the bill?
And I'm sorry, there was one other change, and this was proposed by Delegate Lehman in one of the amendments that was submitted to the committee, and that was to update the standard that was referenced for mechanical insulation from a 2007 standard to a 2019 standard.
That works. Delegate Long, you had a question, sorry. Delegate Long, you're on mute. Oh, there you go. Bob, you have a question?
I'm sorry, my phone rang. Yeah, does this credit go for mechanical installation that exceeds the that's required now? Or how will they base the credits? I'm just curious.
So, George, you can respond to that.
Yeah, so the grants would be for new mechanical installation that is being installed. The expenses would need to exceed exceed what are statute, regulation, or code requirements.
So you can't get it just for under these amendments. You can't get it just for installing what's required.
And who will determine what the difference, we know what the standard is, but how will they make a determination what exceeds that? Will the engineers have to do that, or how will that work?
That'll be established through regulation by the Maryland Energy Administration.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I move the amendments.
Second.
All those in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? On the bill as amended, I move favorable.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's turn to our late edition SB 191, which was pulled over from a previous meeting, and my understanding is that there are some
Unable to hear you, Mr. Chair.
SB 191, my understanding is there are some amendments that have been worked out between the various parties who are having conversations. George, do you want to describe those amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, the amendments would clarify the underlying bill with respect to the information that needs to be required to be published on the Department of Commerce's website. The department had proposed changes that would have consolidated information to be provided on the website based on what is required to be in the reports for those provisions that they had amended with the underlying bill. The amendments simply restore some provisions of existing statute to make clear that information regarding jobs created by applicants or capital investments created by made by applicants or recipients of financial aids or credits would be reflected in the information that is provided on the website. In addition, the second component of the amendments is to amend provisions of law concerning the implementation of the Purple Line Construction Zone Grant Program. These amendments reflect implementation of the grant program to date and conform the statute to the program as currently administered by Commerce.
And Delegate Polakovich-Carr, did those amendments address the concerns you had?
They did, yes.
I will, and Jen, the department's comfortable with those amendments, right?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Delegate.
Okay, hey, that's everybody working together. I love it. Move the amendments.
Second.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On the bill as amended, is there a motion?
Move favorable.
Second.
Okay, there we go. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. That bill is recommended favorably to the full committee. SB 210, tax credits, employer provided commuter benefits, expansion and administration is departmental legislation that makes some tweaks to the existing commuter benefits tax credit, specifically to allow teleworking, multimodal commuting, like a broader range of stuff to fit under this, walking and biking to work, etc. But the program remains capped at, what is it, $1 million a year, George?
Yes, 1 million.
Okay. So I don't think we have any amendments on it. Any discussion on the bill? Is there a motion on the bill?
Move favorable.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. SB 215. So this is another one where we were talking with ECM. Senate Bill 215 is a departmental bill that, as introduced, would have extended and expanded the existing energy storage tax credit. Again, in conversations with the chair of ECM, I talked to him about the fact that I think people should be coming to his committee and not our committee to deal with energy storage issues, and this is something that maybe shouldn't be in the tax code. So the amendments we have in front of us would continue this program essentially as is for 2 years, and then at that point transition it to a grant program. Now, the program, the tax credit program right now has a cap. These amendments, George, would keep the mandated appropriation the out years at $1 million. So it's not an increase.
So the existing cap is $750,000.
Right. And
that is not altered by the amendments. The change proposed in the bill is stricken, as was the refundability for the credit. As amended, the bill would simply extend the credit for energy storage systems installed until December 31, 2024. And then the grant program would pick up for the installation of energy storage systems after that date.
Delegate Buckle?
Did you say, George, that the refundability of the current credit program is to be stricken through the amendments?
So the current program is not refundable. The department
Correct.
wanted to make it refundable, but because we're converting it to a grant program anyway, that becomes unnecessary.
So through 2024, it'll still be a credit under the existing paradigm, or the refundability will be stricken. I just have a thing with, like, let people get the benefit of their bargain. If they thought they were getting it under the existing law, let it stay the way it is until then. But the
Which is what that
refundability
does.
wasn't in the existing law. Okay.
Correct. And I apologize. I realize I have a typo in the amendments that I provided you earlier. So
You're fired, George. That's it.
On page 4, under subsection H, it should say that the grant under the section may not be awarded for an energy storage system installed before January 1, 2025. So that way you have seamless transition between the credit and the grants.
And the grant program. Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Palakovich-Carr?
George, is the credit right now currently a one-time, 1 year credit, or would somebody potentially be claiming it over multiple years?
It's a one-time, to my knowledge. Let me review the statute very quickly.
Thank you.
In teaching, we call this wait time, but I'm going to call it George time.
It does not explicitly prohibit somebody from applying for, say, multiple installations of energy storage systems. And with respect to the credit currently, it may not be claimed, or if you claim it, any excess cannot be carried forward. And that's what also relates to the existing lack of refundability in current statute.
Okay, so somebody who did a project would have claimed it, and so the changing over to a grant wouldn't apply to somebody because each year you're getting a different group of people. Okay, I'm good.
All right, I move the amendments.
Second.
All those in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? I move the bill as amended.
Second.
All those in favor of the bill as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Senate Bill 310 is the Senate version of the Anne Arundel County SMWOBA emergency declaration bill we just did. So the amendments would just conform the Senate bill to what we just did on the House bill. So I move the amendments.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move the bill as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay. Senate Bill 453, I was asked to hold over to our next meeting, so I will hold that one. And we will skip to Senate Bill 473, which is the Senate cross-file of a bill we've already passed to change the thresholds for qualifying donations to the Maryland Innovation Initiative Program. I see that the vote was 138-1. Delegate Buckle, who was the one person that voted against your bill? I ask as Delegate Buckle is off screen and muted. Okay, well, we're just going to assume that Delegate Buckle himself voted against it. I move the bill. There's no amendment.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're going to record Delegate Buckle as in opposition to the bill in subcommittee. He's muted. All right, last bill, Senate Bill 474, Economic Development, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Fund. So we've already passed earlier, actually it was on the floor today, the House version of this. The amendments on the Senate bill conform it to the House version with the additional amendment to name the program after Senator George C. Edwards. So I move the amendments.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On the bill as amended, is there a motion?
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's our list for today. Great work, people. In the bills we still have outstanding that I know are going to come up at some point this week. The makerspace bill we just held. There is the historic revitalization thing, which is still being worked out. We're going to have to come back to the Senate version on the mechanical insulation tax credit and the cross-file on the digital products bill. Any other bills that you have questions about, feel free to reach out to me. We are going to meet in subcommittee probably Wednesday or Thursday, to hopefully do our last batch of bills. Delegate Buckle, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I literally had to step outside of my office for 2 seconds to explain to people that I can't read a 245-page court opinion in less than 7 minutes. Went to law school, didn't learn how to do that in less than 7 minutes.
I already read it, Buckle.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably wrote it. I mean, I don't know. Like it may have been.
The last 190 pages of it are just appendices, so it's not actually.
It's just pure Ludke, thought. The last 100 pages, but 473 and 474. Did we move those?
No, we killed them both.
Awesome.
Because you weren't here. Yes, they were both moved favorably.
Great. Thank you very much. I just have it on my notes. I just had to step out into my outer office for a minute. Thank you.
No worries. Anyway, so any other issues you have or bills you have questions about, feel free to reach out. And that's it for today. You guys have been doing a fantastic job this year. I will see you tomorrow on the floor.
Thank you.